Hi everyone, and welcome to my first YouTube video. I wanted to talk about your first professional audition. Obviously, I'm not the world's expert on orchestra auditions because I don't have a job, but I have taken a lot of auditions. I've taken about 20 live auditions in different cities now, so I have a pretty good feel of how the process goes and what to expect. To apply for an orchestra audition is very simple. First, you find an audition listed, which I routinely check a few websites, and they'll post the job. You just go to their website, and typically it'll say, please send a one-page resume to so-and-so email address. Basically, I just send the same email every time, which is this. Very simple, to the point, and I attach my one-page resume, and that's all it requires. Most of the time, they'll send you something back and say, thank you for your interest. We will keep you in the loop, or we'll give you information. They may send you the audition list. They may also have that posted on their website already. It just depends on the orchestra. They're all slightly different. In other cases, they may screen resumes, which means they may look at your resume and then decide whether or not to invite you. In that case, I have heard that if it's an audition that's really close to you especially, you can still show up on the day of and they're supposed to hear you. I haven't tried it. It makes me a little nervous to put that much effort into something that I may not have the opportunity to play, but one of my friends has said that she's done that before, and generally there tend to be a few people that don't show up and they'll just kind of squeeze you in there. Then there are some orchestras that will give you an option to send in a recording as a sort of pre-screening. If they don't think you're qualified based on your resume, they may give you an opportunity to receive an invitation if you can pass through their screening recording, which will usually be just a few really standard excerpts. When you're applying to an audition, typically you'll send in a resume, and then you'll also be asked to send in a deposit check, which can be between $25 and $100 approximately. This check you will send to them to ensure that you'll show up. So if you show up, they will give you your check back and you won't be charged. If you cancel before the deadline, they won't charge you. Each orchestra will have their cutoff. The biggest step of the process is the preparation by far. Ideally, you have at least a month, but if the audition's really close to you, and it's not going to be a big financial investment, just go. Even if you only have a few weeks, having that opportunity to go through the whole audition and prepare, get that pressure is just so great. And if you can do your first audition without having to travel very far or pay for a hotel or in some way make it less of a financial burden, that is an ideal first audition. Preparation for an audition is a lot of work. There's organizing your music, there's your travel plans, and practicing, of course. The first thing I like to do is gather together all of the excerpts that I need into a folder and figure out if I need to order some parts. If I'm missing something, I have enough time to order it and get it and still have time to practice. The next step is to create a playlist of all of my music that I need to prepare. When I'm preparing for an audition, I like to have this playlist with every piece that I'm preparing. That way I can just listen to it while I'm driving. I can listen to it anytime and it's there for me to just study. It's very important to have recordings to listen to and study to get a feel for the overall piece and style. Ideally, you'll have multiple recordings of every piece that you have to prepare. Really, the more the better. Initially, this might seem like a lot of work and a lot of music to have to purchase, but you'll find that most auditions have a lot of overlap and you end up reusing the same recordings for all of the different auditions. Once you are officially invited to the audition, you can start making your travel arrangements. Don't do this before you're officially invited. Just wait. Here are some of the things you should think about. How to get to the airport, if you're going to park there. Of course, the airplane flight, if you're flying. Then how to get from the airport to your hotel and where you'll be staying. Then also you need to probably get around a little bit in the city that you're staying in. So how are you going to do that? If you have a job or you're a student at school, make sure that you make arrangements so that you can be absent and let all of the people know that need to know. So we've got most of the logistics sorted out. We've collected our music. We've made a playlist to listen to. We've figured out our travel plans. Of course, all of that doesn't have to happen before you start the musical preparation. It should sort of happen as you're doing it. Preparing yourself mentally is also extremely important. So much of the audition experience is all in your mind, because if you think about it, all you're doing is you're walking into a room, you're playing some excerpts, and you're walking back out. What changes is the environment and the way that you react to that. There are so many great resources to help you prepare your mind with visualization or meditation. There are websites, articles, podcasts, apps, all of these things. There's so many. Don't be overwhelmed. Just try something, and just having a little bit of energy directed toward a mental preparation, I think, makes a big difference. Last but definitely not least, recording yourself is a major part of preparing for an orchestra audition. I personally had such a hard time doing this. Now that I'm recording for Instagram, it gives me some accountability to do it regularly, but I just have such a hard time with it. I always felt like it was so tedious because I have to record, then stop, listen. It is very tedious. But there's so much that we can't notice when we're playing because we get so used to the way that we play things. Just having that little degree of separation and listening to a recording of yourself gives you so much information. Even if you're not exactly sure why it doesn't sound correct, you can listen and experiment with what you're doing to find a better approach. Another thing I like to do, which is a little heartbreaking but also so informative, is to record myself, then I listen to it, then I listen to a professional recording and kind of go back and forth, and that makes it usually very clear some of the things that I need to address. Pretty soon after all of that preparation, time will whiz by and you will find the audition day is upon you. Every audition I've been to has been slightly different, but here's a sort of general idea of what happens on that day. Once you arrive at the audition site, most of the time you will sign in. They will return your deposit check to you, and then they'll give you some information about what's going to happen that day. Usually you will have a group warm-up room that you'll be ushered to with all the other flutists in your group. When you're signed in, they will often give you a list of the excerpts that will be in the first round. This has not happened at every audition I've been to. Sometimes they will wait longer to disclose what those excerpts will be, or sometimes they may not tell you at all. But most often they do tell you what you will be playing in the first round. Most of the time it starts with Mozart. You'll be assigned to an audition group, which means you'll be playing, for example, between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. You won't know exactly what time you'll be playing because when you get there, they'll often have you pick a number, old school, and that will determine your exact audition time. Typically, before you go on stage, you will have some time in a personal warm-up room. The amount of time you're given will vary. Generally, I found it to be 15 minutes at least. Basically, every audition I've done, except for one I did in Japan, has been blind. So in a blind audition, there will generally be a proctor who walks you on stage and explains to you what you should do, which is walk on stage. Don't talk at all. If you have a question, you need to address it to the proctor quietly, and they will ask the committee. The committee will be behind a big screen, like a big divider that is blocking them so that you can't see each other. Then there will usually be someone from the music union who is sort of sitting right next to that divider, and they can see both sides of the screen, and they just make sure that everyone is following the rules of the music union and it is being conducted fairly. Before you get onto stage, do be sure that you've put all of your music in order so that when you walk on stage, you can just play, 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 and you don't have to fumble through your big stack of music. Then you just go through your excerpts, you play them one by one. Take your time before you start, take your time between each excerpt, and let yourself establish a tempo, a style, hear some of the music in your head before you start. There's no rush. A lot of times time feels like it is going so much faster when you're nervous. A lot of times I'll take some majorly deep breaths in between my auditions, like like basically sighing and trying to calm myself down. Stay focused. You may get some directions from your committee while you're playing. They may stop you earlier than you expected. They may ask you to repeat something, or they may tell you thank you, which means you're done. All of these things don't necessarily mean that you did anything wrong. Sometimes they've just decided that they're going to stop the excerpt at an earlier point. I have been asked once to repeat something, which was the very beginning of Leonora Overture, that very long phrase. I ran out of breath on this phrase, and because I had played a pretty solid Mozart exposition before that, they asked me to repeat it because I think that they thought I could do better, which I actually did the second time. So that was so great that I actually got the opportunity to do it again. So if you're asked to repeat something, I think it's actually a positive because they think that maybe that was a fluke and you can probably do that better if you had another shot. After your audition's over, that's it. You did it. A lot of times you will have to wait for the end of your group, which will usually be within an hour, and then they'll announce the numbers, usually, sometimes they use names, of who advanced and who will be playing the next round. If you're dismissed, no biggie. Most people are dismissed just by the percentage of people that can advance. If you advance, it is so great, and you have obviously prepared very thoroughly for your audition. I have advanced once in my 20 auditions to the semifinal round, and that time they actually announced the names, and they said Elise Hokamp, and I was kind of like, are you sure? Because I was just so used to not being called by that point. Not advancing is just so normal. I know it feels bad. Sometimes it feels worse than others. I think for me it feels the worst when I think I've played really well, or I think that that's the best that I can play and I still get cut. But it's okay. There are so many things that are out of our control when we're auditioning, especially if it's your first audition. Don't expect too much. There will be people who will advance, and that's their first audition. There are even people who win their first audition, but that's not the norm in my experience. Most people have to keep trying. Doing a professional audition is a big responsibility. It's not just being a great player. There's so many different aspects to it, and it requires a lot of maturity, not only to perform your music under pressure, but just to organize all of the logistics of getting to your audition. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, or you can follow me on Instagram at Elise Hokamp. I hope this is helpful to you and demystifies the professional audition. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Good luck!